everybody for joining on site at the World Wisdom, this beautiful place outside Visby. Online, we have the OceansX team, and they will present themselves in a moment. I'm joining. My name is Nikolaj Blom. For those of you who don't know, I represent the water bridging camp here at the gathering, and I also work with these wonderful people at the OceansX team and OceansX, and they will present the philosophy of that. So yeah, how do we start? Berend, have you prepared a few introductory words, or is that the idea?
Yeah, no worries. I'm always ready to talk about OceansX. Most important thing is, I guess, that we follow your flow. However, I'll just start with a short introduction. So for the past 20 years, I've been sailing on submarines, and board of a submarine, we've got 4 in Holland. There are 62 people, and it is all actually always about the technology in that boat. And the last 4 years I've been captain of the submarine, and I actually know that everything has a limit except the human potential. And now we're actually on an endeavor with this foundation called OceansX, that we want to unleash that human potential actually on everything what intrinsically drives a person. Because as I was telling stories about being a captain of a submarine and getting 60 people to strange places in this world, they always said, yeah, but that's always easy because they're on board of a submarine and they can't leave. And the story around that submarine is always compelling because there's a threat. And I said, actually, well, it doesn't have to do anything with that. I believe it's also possible to, without being on board, physically being on board of a submarine, we can create the same circumstances in which people optimally connect to each other, use their own potential, and make a much better, efficient way to tackle whatever drives them. And so, of course, that's a big ambition, but we start small with various movements. We're always talking about movements, and we make that very practicable. And so we actually have 2 movements which we can talk about and we can use as examples of how we work. And one is a movement to reduce CO2 in the maritime sector. Of course, the maritime sector is a big polluter and contributing to a lot of CO2 in the atmosphere. And a lot is done and actually in a traditional way. So there are new emission levels and guidelines produced by the International Maritime Organization, but how are we going to reach that? And there's always a very strong focus on technical innovation, but actually the biggest results are possible from today to tomorrow by changing attitude and behavior. And attitude and behavior is something very strange because it's not, you're not able to dictate attitude and behavior and keep ownership of the place you want it. So you need to do it in a positive and an invitational manner, but also be pretty clear about the guiding principles. And actually the guiding principles on your website have the same reason to actually guide people and to help them along. So this maritime sector, we provide a challenge for crews of seagoing vessels to actually compete against each other. And compete is then, of course, within apostrophes, because it's not about the competition, but it's actually to stimulate and inspire each other, share knowledge, but also really see what the result and what what the change in attitude and behavior does. So there's also big data-driven feedback loop in there. It's all data science, which actually says, okay, if I do that, then it really has a result in my CO2 emissions. And what you see then is that there's so much more buzz going on, and that the sailors on board of the vessels have actually the best and the most brilliant ideas, and that there are connections happening which supersede all laboratorium circumstances or technical innovation hub, smart cities, whatever, secluded areas. This is a vibe, it's a movement, and everybody wants to contribute. And that's what we're after with OceansX. Because, as we say with OceansX, why do we call this planet Earth? It's quite clearly ocean, and everything is connected in the ocean. And so are we connected by our social problems. And especially me, and then I'll give the word to Everine and Patrick, maybe Nikolaj also to elaborate maybe why their story commits to OceansX. But what I see also in the armed forces, we're always on the end side, and we're always wanting to protect what is valuable. But in that protection, we're always very looking at our fears, and so that is a threat, and that is a threat, and we have to counter that threat. But there's so much to do on the other side, on the forward side, and actually because before we are all in this threatened position, and we all know that we don't make the best decisions when we're leaded by fear, but just there's so much potential in this world, and the way we are organized at this moment, that potential is not fully embraced, and there's so much social responsibility to take, and it's an open invitation to everybody to take that social responsibility, and we're going to help everybody along who commits to OceansX to see how they want to contribute and help them in the utmost way to manifest that, and not, that's it.
Thank you very much.
So that's actually the introduction of OceansX, and well, Everine is my sister, and she actually has her own project now within OceansX, because as I was telling from the maritime sector, that is something, a big issue in my background, in my world. But actually water was in her, is her lifeline the past years. And maybe because she can tell something about Oceans 5, the 5th project.
Yep.
So Everine, please go ahead.
Yes. It actually started in our field with Nikolaj and myself, looking at water science and what's all already possible, and bumping into the original systems where it didn't flow that easily as all the opportunities were laying around. And at the same time, we were thinking about how to create a new environment where we could really bring all this knowledge together, because definitely we cannot do it alone, and working together is also much more fun and much more, it gives much more potential. And then already Oceans 1, that's another project that Berend just discussed, was running, and we at the water science community know lots of solutions also for these big ships and reducing the CO2 or using less energy. So there was also a bridge to there already, like, okay, let's just try. And with the OceansX movement, that's the whole nice part of it, that we can just do what we like to do. So when we think, these people might contribute, let's just connect and see how it works and how it flows. Of course, with the oceans setting, we create this environment that makes it even easier to just bring in ideas and context and whatever. So even there it started, and then the Oceans 5 surfaced with also colleagues in the Netherlands. The surface water quality is an issue, but mainly it's not, we didn't want to really go for the surface water quality, but we were like, okay, there's so much potential from our science, from our group, from people wanting to do things from outside science, from all these other entrepreneurs who have these bright ideas of people connected to more knowledge from another side, wisdom. So we thought, okay, where can we, in what kind of container can I put this problem so that this all connects? So then we got the surface water quality as, okay, we dive in there because this is where we can connect many people, and it can be on different levels. It can be practical, like really, okay, we want to clean the water, but it can also be engaging the whole community into more knowledge about water. What is water? Water is us. As you all know, I'm just not saying the obvious, but it's called Water is Us, and let's use the power of water for society. And it's us, but water and the power of water together combined is really potential of changing the world. So that's what we see. So this is the pool that we can play in to really connect all and change. So, and show that this way of working can work. That's where I start. Maybe Nikolaj wants to add, maybe Patrick.
Well, yes, sorry, actually, I would like to add something because it's all about the social cohesion. And even if I go back to the armed forces, or actually the big organizational structures who actually have to take care of a lot of public goals, then it all comes down to social cohesion, and everybody understands that. And if you go into neighborhoods and take that water, if water is us, and take that whole, it is beautiful how that actually works to both ends of the story. Sorry, that's what I would like to add to what Everine was just saying. Yeah.
Yeah, and continuing along that line. So I find myself. You all know that I'm a scientist by training, just like Everine, and we met each other in the emerging water science community. But we also believe that it's not only, as you said, Berend, it's not only about technology that will save the world. It's mainly about social coherence. And I felt a strong coherence with Niels van Heine, who is organizing this event here at Gotland, but also Patrick, both of whom I met in Switzerland in January this year. So, Patrick,
Yes.
I also see you as a water bridger. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, well, my name is Patrick Martel. I'm from Canada, so that's why it's really dark here. It's 5 a.m. This morning here in in Quebec. So, but I woke up very early this morning, and I went on the lake with my kayak, and just to look at the stars. And it was 3 a.m. It was beautiful. And there's a lot of shooting stars this week. It's a great week for that. And with my thumbs, I just do something like that. And with my thumbs, I probably hide maybe 1 million galaxies. Okay, with only my thumbs. Okay, so we're not that big in that big universe. Okay, we're not that big, and and planet Earth is the only one we have. Okay, it's the only planet we have, and we need to take care of that. So and it's full of water. And on my side, I'm working in the mining business, and the mining business regenerates a lot of problem to the water. And it really hurts the water in the past. And what we do is we try to to bring clean water to the world. And yes, we met in we met in January, and then we start to work together with Berend and Everine to work on the OceansX. But basically, it's the same. We were doing the same thing. Like I was doing the same thing in Canada that you were doing in Europe. And what we are trying to do here in Canada, we're trying to bring people together to clean a lake that's been impacted by mining activities. It's in the middle of our town, and what I was trying to do back 3 years ago is I was trying to get people together to start to work on a common objective or a common intention. And this is very difficult. This is very difficult. At a point, you try many things. You try to motivate people, but I think it's all about intrinsic motivation. And Berend, I think we need to talk about that. That's the driving force of a movement. You need to have people that has that intrinsic motivation that will start to make that movement work, and then the other people will start to have this movement, and it's like a magnet. If you have a magnet and you have another one, if you move one, the other one will start to move out as well. It's that's all about movement is. And Berend, I think that's the basic of the what we are proposing in OceansX philosophy.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Patrick.
Totally true. And that intrinsic motivation that gets inspired. And then I come back to that compelling story. But all the people who are now in this video call know exactly what intrinsic motivation is, because there's no reason, there's nobody put you into a teepee and sitting there around that pool looking at people talking about water. Even for Maria and Amit, yeah, they're here. So that is intrinsic motivation. Where comes that from? Yeah, that comes from a story, a compelling story, and that the story can be very big, and that's the same as being on a small boat together, having to do something, or it's the lake story, or it's a boat story, or it doesn't matter. Make the story as big as possible so that everybody can have their own compelling story in there. And that's the only way to get that intrinsic motivation flowing. And I believe the way we are organized, and coming back to actually what I believe is also one of the most the priorities of wisdom. The way we are organized at this moment is actually still still in a control modus, instead of in a modus of believing and trusting that human potential, and then engaging that human potential by intrinsic motivation. And because if you stay in that controlling part, and if you're staying in that managerial part, and I'm never going to use the word leadership. And everybody asked me hey, well, you've been captain on a submarine, so you have a lot of leadership experience. Can you talk about leadership? I said leadership is the worst term ever, because it's not about leading other people. It's about engaging or creating the circumstances in which people can grasp onto that compelling story, making their own compelling story, getting intrinsically motivated to clean that lake, to I don't know, maybe it's because their grandmother died, and that motivates them to be with their grandmother and cleaning the lake, and others do that for their kids. It's all fine with me, but just create the circumstances in which that intrinsic motivation keeps, like Patrick says, magnetizing its surrounding. And yeah, you should maybe push in your three rules, Patrick, to the world. And actually, was actually the COVID time we were talking about it, and then Patrick said, we don't need those COVID restrictions. I got 3 rules, and I actually used it the last couple of months. But maybe you can talk about that a bit.
Well, it's because my here in Canada, we've been confined in our house for many weeks, and my mother called me, and I said, hey, let's go for a walk, and I will pick you, and she said, hey, I can't do that because because the law, you know, the government said that we have to stay home. And then I said, who's that law? And she said, well, it's the law from the government. I said, well, this is the law from human. You know, if you have like the God's law, okay, let's try to have only 3 laws in the 3 rules in the world. Okay, so the first one we found is love. Okay, you need to act for love. Okay, and love is against fear. Right? It's the opposite of fear. So I said if you would add if you would act with love, you would never need to confine the people in their house, because the people, when they get sick, they would stay home. They would wash their hands, and it would work. And then I said, what is the second law and the second rules? The second rules is to do the right things. Okay, is the rule for to work for the good, the good for the world. I said if you do the right thing the first time, you're okay. So the second rule is the good. The first one is love. The second one is good, and the third one is you need to feel free. Okay, and this is is the freedom. You're totally free to observe the first and the second rule. And at the end of the day, I said, if we use those those 3 rules all the time, it will it's applicable for every movement. And we try this in in the mining business, and frankly, it works. And people they were thinking we're crazy, but they said, well, it really works. I said, well, if I act with love towards you, and I do good towards you, and you know that I'm totally free to do it or not, this is very this has a lot of impact. And then the people said, yeah, you're right. So it started to change the way the people start to think in the business, and we need to start changing those way of the way we behave in our business, and towards water, but also towards energy or pollution, agriculture. It's all the same stuff. So it's a matter of culture. Huh? Yeah.
And absolutely. And actually, you know, once you get into this mindset of whatever, then it simplifies. So again, going back to my experience as a captain of a submarine, there were guys who were actually trying to control a special operation till the end. And once they got on a bypass, or there's something happened, they actually had to go back and take all these variables in their heads. They were actually boasting each other, saying, okay, hey, I can take 7 variables. I can take 8 variables. I'm very good in getting complex situations. But, you know, it's too complex, guys. And if it's not too complex now, it's going to be complex in a year or 2. So there is no ego in this whole business. It is all about going back to those 3 fundamentals, and we can change them a bit, but this is the way it works. And that it's very simple. So everybody asks me, okay, how can you manage more than 4 or 5 projects? Well, it's all the same. It comes back to the same things. But then, to make it simple, the biggest question we always ask as OceansX, how can we help? And we have been talking now for 30 minutes, but I'm very interested in the other people who are also here. And so you have got a little introductory. It's a big story, but it's very clear, very simple. But how could we help?
Could you briefly mention some of the players, organizations that have signed up for this? Because I think it's very surprising, some of these groups, organizations that are part of the OceansX mindset, like, you know.
Yeah, well, so I'm not talking about organizations. I'm actually always talking about individuals. So I'm talking to CEOs of big companies, but yeah, they're of course they say, yeah, good idea, and then they sign, and then but it's those getting down to the levels for actually getting the intrinsic motivation going. Well, the CEO is not going to do anything, but it's finally the captain of a submarine or captain of a boat. Well, the Royal Danish Navy is in Oceans One, the Dutch Navy is in Oceans One, but it's 5 captains of the Dutch Navy, and it's 1 captain of the Royal Danish Navy. It's a friend of Nikolaj, who is actually the technical and main technical engineer on board of a ferry going from Samsø to another part of the country. And those guys are the golden bridges. They're actually, and we're helping them to analyze their data. And this data is, of course, commercial trust. So it's very difficult to get that in the open innovation. We arranged it in such a way that actually the Dutch Armed Forces is within their firewall, is actually hosting the data and analyzing it and getting it out of the positional data, retracting that so that this data is available for everybody to get the prototypes out. But then also for the water conference, the Port of Amsterdam, for the water project of Everine, the Port of Amsterdam is very interested. The municipality of Amsterdam is interested. We're actually applying for a EU grant, which the EU has the same problem. There's a lot of money in the whole world, but the biggest problem is not money. The biggest problem is getting in contact with the people. And once we get in contact with the people and getting the intrinsic motivation going, then we socially coherent, and then doesn't matter whatever problem we need to tackle, it starts to flow.
But my
yeah.
I'm so I mean, what we are exploring here at Scotland is how to, bridge or combine the ancient wisdom with modern society, modern technology, and modern living. OceansX is an example of actually manifesting that. But what I see, the 3 guiding principles of Patrick that's really ancient wisdom. I mean, the part.
Yeah.
And those people that you mentioned, these organizations, they would never come to a World of Wisdom event, I think. But they do join OceansX, so that's wonderful.
Yeah, but guys, don't make the World of Wisdom too big either. So it is also you guys as individuals who actually believe that is the way forward. And it's not about having this lion on a belt and saying this lion is dangerous, and if you don't obey, then I let the lion loose. So it's all about individuals coming together, flowing, and maybe in a couple of years, the World of Wisdom is not going to be there anymore because the flow is out. There's no problem, because it was a movement. It helped you guys at this stage of your life. And so these guiding principles are actually in everybody and should be in everybody. And if you have a company in which you create the circumstances, and Patrick can talk enormously inspiring about Technosub, which is actually his company. And he's actually creating the same same circumstance for those guys. And now with OceansX, we're actually endeavoring outside organizational structure to create that, because we don't think that organizations are able to take up the responsibility, because in this money-driven economy, there is no business plan to take responsibility, to stretch your responsibility and take as much responsibilities on your shoulders. It's investment bankers say why, and that is thing. Yeah, Amir, Vamit.
Yeah.
I just wanted to chime in and like resonate with what you're saying about the responsibility, and also there's this concept of one pocket or two pocket economies. There's like that I've been in sort of a one pocket and two pocket economy, which we are in now. Then people make money over here, and then you transfer it to over here, and then you try to help, and then you end up with what you're saying. I think a little bit that you have what are you going to help with? Like who are you helping with? So you're throwing money at problems that don't really need money. You probably need more compassion and people and community and like all of these things. And so money doesn't really move the needle. There's a lot of investment going on, but it doesn't really help. And then it's my daughter calling. The second thing is also this aspect of, as we've been talking about, sort of how do you drive change, and that's also about how do you handle, well, complexity is of course one thing, but how do you handle paradox? So it's both sort of being able to speak the language and act within the system that we currently have and on those terms, and then at the same time the things that at least I hear when you're talking, which is sort of acting from a different paradigm, from a different point, and then yeah, just letting that sort of take place, and depend, like your intention is so important, like where it's coming from, where the action is coming from is incredibly important. So just two reflections. Yeah.
No, yeah, I totally agree. So we're actually also now really this coming half year we're growing from a voluntarily way of doing to a more sustainable way. So just to go into that in the practical side of that, it's a foundation which is actually 100% owner of a company. And so Oceans One is this movement, is this vibe, is this a lot of people who are actually interacting with each other, and that is actually the perfect breeding place for a serious game. A serious game, how to actually operate teams on board of ships, to talk about their challenges, because a captain has a different challenge than the chief technical officer, but also with their companies on land, which are saying, well, we need to, they have a logistic problem. So we're actually trying to make that in a serious game, and that serious game is actually, can still be, is one of the means to still stay connected to the real world, well, the world of today. And that what we're absolutely also constantly juggling with that paradox. And we're actually making the paradox is Oceans 3. So it is a movement. So yes, there's a paradox at this moment. We're actually naming that as a movement, but we're not talking about reorganizations or transformations, because it's not, it's a quantum leap. It's just a different way of working. So and that's actually, again, talking about because the Armed Forces is a 65,000 people organization in Holland. So it's a big organization, and that they're talking about reorganization it, transitioning it, but we're unable to do that. Unable to do that in making that into a whole different system. So I'm actually building up arguments and saying, well, don't refurbish your house, but just go to a new plot and build up a new house. And that is, and making that too big in the beginning is offending. So we're just calling it OceansX. It's a movement. It's, if you want to join, you join. If you don't, you don't. And if you have a wave you want to take the wave, be the surfer, and also make it attractive, because of course it has to be a practical way of doing things. And so Everine takes along the scientist world, Patrick takes along this practical project, Nikolaj comes into brings the whole Danish world into it, and I have the story of being a captain of a submarine, motivating people to be in a place where actually nobody will survive without the air from the outside world. Yeah. So that is actually well. And Marie.
Let's open the floor.
Hi, my name is Louise. I live on this island of Gotland, and we're actually very symbolically in a lime quarry. So here I was quite impelled to go to this workshop due to the mining industry, because it has a lot of similarities. So that's the biggest challenge for Gotland. We have no water here, and we're in a lime quarry, which is a big wound. It's very beautiful, but and my one, you're talking about, yeah, I don't understand everything that you say, I must say. I'm trying to understand what you're doing, but I'm curious, how do you communicate? the mining industry in Canada, for example, has one language, and you're talking about love, and that's awesome. But how, like, I'm quite practical as a person. I'm like, that's awesome. Love is great. How do you communicate? How do you create that intrinsic motivation within the mining company? Because the other side here in Gotland is like they create work is really big here. Families for generations has been mining industry. It's easy to come as an environmental friendly person and say, you know, it's bad, and then you lose a lot of jobs. So it's two sides. It's like a big conflict on this island. It's really sensitive, and they are right now like starting a new project outside the little village outside Visby called Klintehamn, and like people are like suffering and the environment suffering. How do you create the intrinsic movement into that company? I'm curious. Like,
well, well,
people are climbing trees, you know. It's
yeah.
no, but it's like literally.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it starts with my own business. Okay, there was big fights with people in my own business. I'm one of the co-owner of a 200 people business. Okay, and people were not able to work together.
Exactly. That's the
This was 3 years ago. And then I was sad, and I said, well, we need to change something. I cannot continue to work that way. I cannot fight with my own brothers and sisters in my own companies. I said, we need to do something. So, and at one point, I was trying to find a way to get people together. And in our small town, we're about 700 kilometers north of Montreal, okay? Our small town in a mining area. I said, we're 45,000 people. I said, who can bring people to work together? And my answer was the artist and the culture side. Okay, so the people that do arts, and these are the people that bring people together to start a movement. So I went to see those people, and I had no knowledge about the artists. Okay, and I said, hey, I need your help. And then they said, why you need my help? You're in the mining business. We're not working together normally. I said, yeah, it's true, but I need your help, because the culture is the cement of humanity. It will bind all the people. And the proof is, if I find someone from Quebec, from Canada, in the middle of I don't know, in the middle of an island somewhere, and I will say, hey, you come from Quebec, I come from Quebec, and we'll be the best friend, okay, because we have the same culture. But if I see the same people in my town, I will not say, hey, you're from Canada, I'm from Canada. We're in the same culture, okay? So it's all about culture. And then I asked those people, I said, okay, let's work together. Let's find a way to work with artists, scientists, and industrial people. And they said, well, we don't have much of projects. We could work all together. I said, hey, I have an idea. We have that lake in the middle of our town. It's full of arsenic. It's full of copper. It's full of cyanide, okay? It's very acidic water. We need to do something. It's a beautiful lake, but nobody can swim in the lake, because over the 90 last year, we destroyed the lake. And then I said, let's build a big artistic sculpture, okay? But inside of that sculpture, there will be a machine that will treat the water. And at the end of the day, in 2026, we will have that big sculpture or a big fountain. I don't know what yet. Okay, this is the work for the artist. Okay, they will find a way to make something beautiful, I'm pretty sure. But as an industrial, I can bring some power. I can bring some money. I can bring some resources. I can bring some people that has intrinsic motivation to make this happen. I have means to do something. The artists, they have ideas, they have love, they have the knowledge how to bring people together. and the scientists, they know how to, they know what to do.
Yeah.
And that's how it starts, that movement.
Yeah.
And then, yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, I would like to just
Yeah.
also make it simpler, because we're actually, the question which was asked is actually a non-inclusive question, because you actually think that there are people who are actually abiding by other rules. But
Yeah.
if you think I can't talk about love on board of a submarine, then you're wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is the most
Yeah, we're
cool thing to do, to be
Yeah.
this magically in this technocratic world where only guys are actually farting and stinking and for 7 weeks in a row below the surface in a trip of 4 or 5 months. And you talk about love, it's the most beautiful thing what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So there is actually there is no artist. There is no
Yeah.
culture. There is no industrial dude. It's all in ourselves. So
Yeah.
and that's actually I've started this movement. It's called Boost, and there are now 5,000 people and 17 units have been engaged in that. So and what Boost does is actually giving that ownership over your own context to the whole context. So innovation is part of every individual. Culture is part of every individual. So stop thinking that there is a paradox, because there's no paradox. If we break it down to the bottom of humanity, or why people are intrinsically motivated. Yes, of course, that's the lion, and we're all the flight, fright, and freeze syndrome. We're all we don't have any questions about it. But the intrinsic motivation science is exactly the same.
Yeah.
So if you touch somebody in the heart, and guys, you're there on Gotland, and you're talking about this, I guess, 4 days in a row, but you guys are touching each other in the heart. That's actually the ambition. So don't talk about that there are people who are who can't be reached. And of course, I am also this realist that if a guy who's 9 years old and gets into contact with the mob and kills his second person, well, by the time he's 16, don't start there, because yes, I think he's wired a bit differently, and that is, we'll tackle that once the moments are there. But there's something, yeah, that's really a sad situation. But there's so much. So don't try to do it for the 100%, but just start within yourself, within your team, within your context, and make it bigger.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that the start.
I understand that everyone has love inside of themselves. I mean, we're all human. I'm my internet. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, here.
I'm just saying, it's just a matter of words or communication, like different, like you have to understand the receiver in order to get your message through, right?
Yeah.
So I was just curious, like from my experience just here on Gotland, the mining industry has a different like communication or language compared to the system, right? So I was just curious, how do you create that? Like, because how I talk is different from how somebody else talks. And I don't work in the mining industry. How do you create that bond? And that was curious, a fun project. But you're already in the mining industry and have the money, guys with the money. I'm just curious. Like, I don't see it as us and them.
I'd like to add to this. I remember, Patrick, when you first told the story about your lake project.
Yeah.
I remember you telling something about there was an old person saying, "Oh, now I remember when I was a kid, we could go swim in the lake." And, it was so beautiful. And someone was painting this image, and as I remember, the whole audience was just like, that's why we're going to do it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
our motivation.
That's what I'm talking about.
And just before the COVID big thing, we started the movement, and now it's slowing down a little bit because we cannot be all together in front of each other. But we had like 125 people, but industrial artists, but it was all humans. That was, and the basic is we had all the same common intention. And from that point, okay, and I have this this little picture here. You see, birds, when they start to fly, okay, they don't hit the other birds, okay. They all fly in the same pattern, okay. And all my cells in my body, okay, I have billions and billions of cells in my body, and each cells are not really intelligent, okay, but they all work together. And because they all work together, I'm here, okay. I can expose you that concept of OceansX and that lake and you know, I'm vice president of my company, and I don't want to be vice president. I'm really dreaming the day I will not be vice president anymore. Okay, because if you, if you look at the forest, okay, is there a tree in the is there a tree in the forest that is the vice president of the forest? No. Okay, when the winter is coming, the bear knows that he has to go in the cave and start sleeping. The frogs goes in the mud. The fish, they will stay under the ice. Okay, every single cells of that big picture knows what to do. Okay, and that's what we want to do with OceansX. It's about the people. The people know what they have to do. They know what to do. It's just a matter of having a common intention, okay, and starting that movement.
Everine, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I would like to add my experience in this, because I'm coming from a strict environment, let's say, limiting. Well, maybe all of us, but we've all grown in this area. And what comes is this intrinsic motivation, okay, this passion. And we know what's more, like what we know in the world of wisdom. We want to bridge it and then want to do something. And for me, OceansX was a way to get slowly free from all these things that I had. So it's also a safe environment for us to explore, to start to feel free again, with, of course, a backpack of the strong foundations of the Navy, or the history, or the knowledge from the technical companies, or the knowledge from whatever. We have it, but we need to also, well, let's speak for myself, Berend and Patrick have already reached that place where at least they create really from themselves. And I'm now learning this, and this is the environment that OceansX wants to create, that we can all start to live by these rules of love, do good, and feel free. This is what we do with OceansX. This is what we explore. I can now talk to a person inside the company. I talk to the water board and whatever. I talk heart to heart. And if I talk heart to heart, then behind that person, they all have the wish to know more, or they also do Chinese medicine, or they also meditate, or they all say, is this the opportunity to bring this in my job? Am I allowed? So this freeing up is also what is giving, what OceansX is giving, to really start to do it in some, of course, in a framework, so that we have a foundation to be free. We need that. Yeah.
And just also to add to the paradox and your Gotland story, the two different worlds. So the standard reaction is, if you come into this conflict, is to make this story smaller, get more focus, make a business model, make a business case, do a project. But with OceansX, we actually make the story bigger. So the compelling story, and yeah, you don't grab it at the moment in its entirety, but that's exactly the whole way, because there is no story, because it's your story. So you can grasp on where it is, but making that compelling story that big, and also making it that trustworthy and compelling, then the mining industry will also live on it, because they're fine living on this planet as well. But don't go so far, because then they're saying, yeah, okay. So you have to find a balance between getting the right scale of that compelling story, in which they also feel that they're part of Gotland and that they're part of whatever drives you. So don't make it smaller, make it bigger. So more inclusive, more integrated. And that's, I guess, the idea. And yeah, beautifully said, absolutely, Everine, because we have a lot of people within OceansX who actually join. And then first they have to go through this reorganization phase for themselves. So there are a lot of guys who actually contribute to OceansX, and after 2 weeks, they feel burnt out. And that's not because of OceansX, but that's because they said, what have I been doing the past period? This is so much fun. How am I going to do this? Because of course I have a material responsibility to take care of my family and to take care of the mortgage. But I actually see that my contribution is much higher in this way. I have much more fun. It costs me less energy. So how am I coping with that? So that is actually the personal development in there is actually happening. But there's no guru. It's just creating the circumstances in which the people can go on a personal adventure. And then we come into Ocean 4. We provide people with stories. So it's not about tasks. It's not about feedback loops. It's not about judgmental requirements. It's not about targets. It's about what is your story and how are you actually disciplined to actually making that story, the start of the new story, matching the end of the past story. Because everybody has a story. I could tell you about my story.
Berend,
it's a 3-phase story. Yeah.
Berend, I think Annika has something to.
Just wanted to say hi from a Canadian on Gotland. Hi.
I love your glasses, by the way.
Thank you very much. Well, I've been working with this question for over 20 years from many different stakeholders' positions, and part of my job is to bring seemingly opposites. And what I've looked at is this question like the spokes on a wheel, that you all different motivational factors, and you ask the question, what's in it for me? And you have to answer that question for the person in front of you. And then you kind of be a little sneaky about it. You kind of sell them what they want, but give them what they need. People go on their own little journey throughout the process, and then they realize the basis of this is love, and it's tapping to something very, very authentic and human, which is passion, because without that, we're dead. And I think the Nordics are ready for this. We literally have everything handed to us. I mean, we're families. You know, we've got everything. So there is, but then we're also fighting against this. In Swedish, there's this word called flum, which is sort of spiritual. And excuse my French, but people would in this country would rather hear "fuck you" than flum.
Yeah.
To say that you're a spiritual person, it's a little bit equating them with stupidity. Yeah, it's not a good.
Don't do it in Sweden.
But what's so I think again, the outer circle, what's in it for me? Tap into the most basic driver. And one last thing, my now ex-husband, surprisingly, every time he worked in finance, I have a degree in Japanese studies, so that saw how that went. But anyway, whenever I would read an article in the paper and didn't understand the motivation for it, he always said, "Well, it's money." And I was very disappointed to figure out that he was probably right, but it also helped me to figure out how to speak to someone who doesn't necessarily have the spiritual aspect.
Hmm. Maria, do you want to? I'm very interested in you too, but maybe it's me.
It doesn't matter. And it's always a projection, so it's always we're seeing ourselves in everyone, and whatever I would say would be anyhow interpreted by you. So it's, since you're coming from the love space, I find it very fascinating. At certain points I noticed some questions that arose, and some things that I would have liked to said, but then let's see where we are at now. Oh yeah, I think it had to do with listening. I was curious about when we have principles, often we put them in the good sphere of what is right. And quite soon we go to the field of right and wrong and good and bad. And into that, we also create the opposition to the opposite, to the dark side of that. And I was a little curious, Patrick, also, on how you handle what arises that is not seen as good. Because my experience is that it's always coming from love. Even when I commit horrible things against other human beings, it's for my longing to be one with that. And it gets very confused in the head. And especially when you land in kind of what's in it for me situations, you know, no, I want this, no, but this is different than what I want. And you don't breach that in the beautiful way you've managed to do that in your projects. Then it can get a little tricky. So I was kind of interested in seeing, how do you take care of what arises within yourself when you meet the opposition to it, and what from this perspective can be seen as bad, and how do you take care of it yourself so the heart is open to expand that much that can be dissolved, since we're talking water, and transformed or flow by itself on another way, or just surrender. As a matter of fact, that's the biggest power of love. It brings surrendering to the mind. Thanks. So your experiences on listening.
I have to leave. I want to thank you so much. Everything. I want to talk more about this, but I can't.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I also have, my laptop is warning me battery is soon to run out, and we don't have the diesel generator running. So in a few minutes, it'll go black. But I think, Maria, if you followed the chat, Amit put up a comment that he will actually host a workshop on those issues in 1 hour from now. So hopefully you can join that. Yeah. If there are any last comments, I think we have maybe 1 minute left of battery. So it's now.
The good, Patrick, the good.
Thank
the
you.
good and the bad.
Yeah, well, the good, well, this is, it's all about, you know, you need to be aware of your ego, okay? And that's to answer your question, it's all about ego, because the ego is the fear part of myself, and you have that, you know, that purpose, and if you go back to your own purpose, and you know what is your purpose on life here, what you're doing here on earth, well, sometimes you see the tricks of the ego, but you need to be aware of that, and that would be a part of my answer to your question, Maria. So yeah. But it's difficult.
Getting up, I envy your kayak trip with the shooting stars. But
oh, it was beautiful. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you all for checking in. It's so much
Thank
aligned
you.
with.
Thanks
Thank
from
you
here
so-
as well. This is
Thank you so much for the
eye-opening and
conversation. I
very
would have loved
generative.
Thanks.
to develop
Bye-bye.
more, but maybe on the next one or something.
Oh, yes.
Thank you so
We'll be
much
in
for your
touch.
work. An old diver here that loves water.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.